As soon as I opened my eyes, I heard the heavy breathing of a woman beside me. The breathing was faint and broken, trembling with fear. I turned my head, and by the dim light filtering through the window, I could clearly see her face. Even in the dark, she was beautiful. But the bruises on her collarbone were absolutely heartbreaking. What is going on? The crack of a belt, the shatter of a liquor bottle, the sound of a woman crying. Those wounds. I was the one who inflicted them.
I've been reborn.
Reborn into the body of a man my own age. He was a violent, abusive alcoholic. A lazy, gambling deadbeat. I, Chen Zuisheng, was once a billionaire business legend. But the moment I opened my eyes, I became the head of this broken family. A wife, beating, gambling drunkard. You're awake? Are you having trouble sleeping? Let me go pour you a cup of tea. There is no need. Just go back to sleep. I tried to keep my voice as gentle as possible, but she reacted like a startled rabbit. I watched her walk barefoot across the cold concrete floor. When she reached the door, her instinctual backward glance wasn't for me. It was directed at our daughter in the corner. That look in Xu Meng's eyes, the emotions hidden within that gaze, made a businessman like me, who was so used to ruthless scheming, feel like my heart was being crushed. In my past life, I negotiated multi-billion-dollar deals. I met with politicians from all over the world. I slept with countless women who willingly threw themselves at me. I thought I had experienced everything life had to offer, but I had never seen a woman so deeply traumatized. Her first reaction upon waking was extreme caution, terrified of waking the monster who beat her. Her second was checking to see if her daughter was sleeping safely. I sat up and rubbed my temples. The memories kept flooding back. He was addicted to gambling, and whenever he lost, he beat his wife. Shut your mouth,
You cheap bitch.
how dare you ruin my luck? The worst beating she ever took. Left Xu Meng bedridden for 3 whole days. Yet she still had to force herself up to cook for him. He spent all day fooling around, accomplishing absolutely nothing. The entire family relied on Xu Meng's fruit stand at the market. The 2,000 or 3,000 yuan she made every month was all extorted by him to blow on gambling. Once he lost it all, had come home and beat her again. He didn't even care about his own daughter. When Qian had a high fever of 39 degrees, he was sitting at the gambling table, answered the phone, and just dropped one line. "I'm playing cards. Call me when She's dead." And finally yesterday, "Bro, you lost again. It's fine. How much is Xu Meng worth anyway? Tell me, how much do you think Xu Meng is worth?" Haha, why wouldn't she be worth something? She's a real beauty after all. If you don't believe me, come over tomorrow and I'll show you. Hell, someone's even coming to the door today to check out the goods. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Xu Meng walked over with a cup of tea. I could see the marks of Qian tossing and turning in her sleep. I pulled back the curtain and took the cup of tea. Come inside. It wouldn't be good if the mosquitoes got in and bit the kid. Xu Meng quietly looked up at me, in complete disbelief that the man who beat and cursed her at the drop of a hat could actually say such words. She got into bed and coaxed Qian to sleep. She lay down with her back to me. Her body was slightly tense. After a long while, she finally spoke in a soft voice. "You can't sleep." I gave a soft, yeah. It was as if she had received a signal. With trembling fingers, she began unbuttoning her nightgown. "The bed is a bit small. Please be gentle." Her voice was numb, completely resigned to her fate. My mind exploded. I instantly understood. The previous owner of this body actually made his wife do this right next to their daughter, using her body to appease his explosive rage. A wave of absolute disgust and fury rushed straight to my brain, followed immediately by an even more intense, agonizing heartache. I firmly grabbed her hand as she unbuttoned her clothes. "Xu Meng." I looked straight into her eyes. It was the first time I had called her name so seriously. "Listen to me. You never have to do this again." Her entire body trembled violently. Her eyes widened to their limits, filled with shock and confusion, and a fragile glimmer of hope she didn't dare reveal. "Go to sleep. I'm gonna give you and Qian a proper life." As the words left my mouth, the plan in my mind became crystal clear. I woke up just as the sky began to lighten, not out of habit, but from the burning urge to change everything immediately, surging in my chest. It burned so fiercely I couldn't sleep a wink. Xu Meng was lifting Qian out of bed as gently as humanly possible. Seeing me open my eyes, she jumped in panic. "I am sorry." I woke up on my own. I sat up. "Let me take Qian to school today. After that, I'll go with you to the fruit stand. Business at the stand hasn't been great lately." I knew she thought I was just going there to take her money. Fear had become her instinct. But this time, I didn't explain. I stood up and walked toward the kitchen. There were only a few eggs left in the fridge, and a bowl of cold rice. The emptiness was heartbreaking. When 2 plates of golden, fragrant egg fried rice were brought to the table, Xu Meng and Qian stood to the side. As if witnessing an unbelievable miracle, Qian looked up with her little face. "Mommy, Daddy knows how to cook." Xu Meng didn't answer. She just looked at me with a deeply complex expression. The farmer's market was loud and full of life. I stood in front of Xu Meng's fruit stand and frowned slightly. It was way too bare. There was only one type of apple, haphazardly displayed. On a torn piece of cardboard, 3.8 yuan per caddy was scribbled crookedly. The auntie selling vegetables next door hollered, "Oh my. Zuisheng actually came to help today. Did the sun rise in the west?" I didn't even bother giving her a glance. My mind was spinning rapidly. The lack of variety meant zero competitiveness. The rigid pricing left the profit margins way too thin. The foot traffic was sparse. It had absolutely no appeal. Xu Meng had to go pay the management fee. Before leaving, she gave me a deeply uneasy look. She whispered, "These apples cost 3 yuan wholesale." "I know. Go on." She kept looking back anxiously as she walked away. I bent down and picked up a few of the flimsy red plastic bags. I weighed them in my hand, then looked at the bustling crowd around me. People who were completely ignoring this little stand. A sales strategy instantly formed in my head. I grabbed a piece of cardboard from the electrical box, picked up a marker from the ground, and wrote 2 large lines. Then, without hesitation, I tore up the 3.8 yuan sign and placed the new sign in the most visible spot. The neighbor auntie looked at me with pity. 20 yuan a bag. Fill it up as much as you want. Chen Zuisheng, has the alcohol completely rotted your brain? Selling like this? You'll lose your pants. I slowly stood up and smiled at her. Auntie, you can't just calculate business by the ounce. What I need isn't to maximize the profit on a single bag of apples. It's to clear the inventory and recover the capital in the shortest time possible. To completely revive this dying stand. The new sign quickly worked its magic. A middle-aged man approached. "Boss, 20 yuan a bag. Fill it as much as I want. For real. They aren't sour, are they?" I casually picked up an apple, swiftly sliced it open, and handed it to him. "Try it yourself. You'll know if it's sweet once you take a bite." After tasting it, he didn't say a word. He just snatched a bag and started stuffing it. He looked like he wanted to stuff it until the bag exploded. I smiled calmly. "As long as you can carry the bag away, those apples are yours." That sentence was like opening the floodgates. The crowd swarmed in. 20 yuan wasn't a lot of money, but the phrase "fill it up" instantly triggered people's most primal instincts. The smile on the neighbor auntie's face froze. Her jaw dropped. She stared at the scrambling crowd and the rapidly disappearing apples. The scale weight in her hand dropped to the ground, and she didn't even bother picking it up. After paying the fee, Xu Meng walked back, full of anxiety. From a distance, she saw our stand completely engulfed by a crowd. She was so terrified, her face turned pale. She thought I had caused some kind of disaster again. She desperately pushed her way through the crowd. But the sight before her left her stunned. She saw me standing behind the stand, not cowering or acting lowly, nor losing my temper or yelling. Just standing there steadily, collecting money and handing out bags, while the people around me were going crazy, fighting to buy my apples. The same apples that used to barely sell all day were now disappearing at a visible rate. When she saw the sign saying 20 yuan a bag, fill it up, her face went ashen. "Are you crazy? 20 yuan to fill it up. We're going to lose everything." "Relax, I've calculated it all. Those plastic bags can hold 2.5 kilos at most. We're definitely making a profit. Look at them. They think they're getting a massive bargain. That's why they're fighting to hand us their money." She stared blankly at the line of people. "How much have we sold?" "Almost 500. 5,700. Her eyes went wide as she looked at me. If she were looking at a stranger. The apples in the boxes were almost gone, but there was still a long line waiting behind. I asked her if she wanted to restock. The people in line immediately started shouting, "Boss, hurry up and get more stock." Xu Meng hurriedly made a phone call. Following my instructions, she ordered an entire truckload straight from the supplier. Old Lee drove the truck over. Seeing the scene, he couldn't help but click his tongue in praise. It was almost time to pick up Qianqian. More than half the truckload of apples had already been sold. Old Lee counted on his fingers, then exclaimed in shock, "Good Lord, you must have sold over 500 kilos today?" Xu Meng couldn't believe her eyes. "What's the total revenue?" "About 4,300 yuan. Compared to the future, this small amount wouldn't even be worth mentioning. But this was the first step for this family to get back on its feet." Xu Meng was dazed. Before, Shed struggled to make this much in an entire month. After cleaning up the stand, I took Xu Meng to buy groceries. Fish, meat, and pork ribs. We spent nearly 300 yuan. Xu Meng's lips parted, but she didn't say anything. I knew she was feeling the pinch of spending so much money. But today, we absolutely had to celebrate. After picking up Qianqian, the little girl saw my hands full of groceries and cheered, dancing around. "Daddy, are we having a big feast?"
That's right.
Sweet and sour fish and braised pork ribs. I bent down and rubbed my cheek against her little face. "Yay. I love you the most, Daddy." She kept clinging to me, skipping around. Xu Meng watched the two of us, her eyes softening. There was a time when this home held nothing but silence and fear. Now, finally, there was a little warmth. The three of us walked home, laughing and chatting happily. Qianqian kept chattering away nonstop. A gentle smile bloomed on Xu Meng's face. This scene was everything I had yearned for since my rebirth. As we passed the convenience store at the end of the alley, Qianqian suddenly tugged at my shirt. Her eyes lit up as she pointed at a glass tank inside the store. Daddy, look. Those bright red goldfish are so pretty. They were just ordinary goldfish, a few yuan each. But in Qianqian's eyes, they were priceless treasures. All right, Daddy will buy them for you. Xu Meng turned her head and said, I'll head back first to wash the vegetables.
You two, hurry home. Okay.
She carried the bags of vegetables, her footsteps light, walking toward the old apartment building a dozen meters away. I held Qianqian as she picked out her fish in front of the store. Just as I was paying, out of the corner of my eye, I suddenly saw a few figures loitering in front of our door, blocking Xu Meng's path as she held her keys to open the door. My heart dropped. Sister-in-law, we've been waiting for you for a long time. Xu Meng was visibly startled and terrified. She took a step back, looking at them warily. What do you want? The blonde guy stepped closer with a sleazy smirk. Just came to give you a little reminder, sister-in-law. Your husband, Chen Zuisheng, had a terrible run of luck at the casino last night, so he put you up as collateral to let us brothers have a little fun. Xu Meng swayed on her feet. The bags of vegetables slipped from her hands and hit the ground. Her face instantly drained of color. It was as if all the strength had been sucked out of her body. I quickly rushed over. Xu Meng had already turned around, her back to the thugs. Facing me as I approached, every trace of color had vanished from her face. Only silent tears streamed down her cheeks. She looked at me holding our daughter carrying a goldfish bowl, walking over like a good father. My lips trembled. Yes, if I wanted to say something, then I heard her voice. Chen Zuisheng, you spent a whole night and day putting on this act, just to make me jump into this fire pit myself. She suddenly bent down, picked up the groceries she had just dropped, and hurled them at me with all her might. I hate you. I want a divorce. The bags slammed into me, scattering food all over the ground. Qianqian was terrified. She burst into loud, wailing tears. Mommy, don't hit Daddy. Before I could even open my mouth, Xu Meng spun around and lunged for the door, but she couldn't get inside. The guy with the triangle eyes grabbed her wrist. Don't be in such a rush to leave, sister-in-law. He reached out to grope her, flashing a filthy grin. Your husband signed it clearly in black and white. You're coming with us today. I saw Xu Meng freeze in place. The terror on her face was even deeper than before. In that moment, something inside me snapped. Let her go. My voice rang out, ice cold. It was an aura forged from 10 years of surviving the cutthroat business world. These street thugs had never seen such a presence. A slap landed squarely on Triangle Eye's face. He stumbled back a few steps. The corner of his mouth split open. His gang was stunned. Everyone was completely shocked. Beat him to death. He finally reacted, charging at me like a madman. All of them rushed me at once. I leaned to the side, dodging the attack, and delivered a brutal kick to his stomach. He let out a blood-curdling scream and flew backward, curling up on the ground, dry heaving. The other three cursed and lunged at me. My movements were strange. They were combat techniques I had learned in my past life. Every strike, every move was incredibly precise and ruthless. Less than a minute later, all four of them were crawling on the ground. Behind me, I heard Qianqian raise her little fists. She shouted, Go, Daddy. Beat up the bad guys. Xu Meng remained completely silent. I walked up to Triangle Eyes and planted my foot on his chest. I looked down at him. Listen closely. I've quit gambling. All previous debts are wiped clean. If you ever dare show your faces here again, I'll beat you every single time I see you. Understand? He was still acting tough. You owe us money and refuse to pay. We're calling the cops. Call the cops, I let out a cold laugh. Illegal gambling rings. Do I need to tell you what the penalty is for massive illegal betting? I have the evidence right here on my phone. Want me to call the cops for you? Their faces instantly turned pale.
Sorry.
Brother Chen, we were wrong. We're getting out of here right now. Hold on. I called them back. I turned my head and glanced at Xu Meng. She was still trembling. Apologize to my wife. Now. The thugs looked like they wanted to die from humiliation, but they still had to bow their heads and apologize. Sorry, sister-in-law. Get lost. I kicked Triangle Eyes aside. They scrambled to their feet and ran for their lives. The world fell quiet again. I turned to look at Xu Meng. The tear stains on her face hadn't dried yet. Her body was still shaking. The way she looked at me was full of fear, suspicion, and deep-seated trauma. My heart ached as if pierced by needles. I walked up to her, looked straight into her eyes, and spoke clearly, emphasizing every single word. Xu Meng, the old Chen Zuisheng, was absolute scum. Dying 10,000 times wouldn't be enough to pay for what he did. I'm not asking for your immediate forgiveness. I just ask that you give me one more chance. I swear on my life. From this day forward, I, Chen Zuisheng, if I ever let you or Qianqian suffer even the slightest bit of grievance, may I die a horrible death. Xu Meng looked at me, Large tears kept streaming down her face. Her lips parted. Finally, with red eyes, she screamed, Chen Zuisheng, bastard. You're a complete bastard. I will never believe you again. With that, she grabbed Chan Qian and rushed into the house.
Slam.
The door was shut tight.
I won't bring up divorce anymore.
That's enough. He opened the door and walked into the kitchen. Soon, the aroma of sweet and sour fish and braised pork ribs filled the room. He brought the food to the bedroom and knocked on the door. Dinner's ready. Even if you're mad at me, don't let our child go hungry. I'll sleep in the living room. Setting the tray down, he turned and walked away. From behind the door came Qianqian's soft voice. Mommy, it smells so good. A moment later, he heard the faint clinking of bowls and chopsticks. Lying on the old sofa, he stared up at the ceiling. The road ahead was still very long, but the direction had never been clearer. Protect them. Make this family truly thrive. Late at night, the bedroom door creaked open just a crack. He closed his eyes, pretending to be fast asleep. A few seconds later, the door gently clicked shut, but this time, it wasn't locked. A faint smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. Over the following days, he accompanied Xu Meng to the fruit stand every single day. 20 yuan a bag. Pick whatever you like. This had become a signature attraction at the market. They steadily sold over 500 caddies of apples every day. In less than a week, exactly 10,000 yuan had been added to Xu Meng's bank card. At night, she often found herself unable to sleep. In the days that followed, sales began to drop. I rolled out a new strategy. Let's stock up on some cherries and blueberries. She frowned. I've tried that before. They simply don't sell. This time is different. I divided the stand into two sections. The standard tier, 15 yuan a caddy. This included apples and honey peaches. The premium tier, 25 yuan a caddy. Mix and match cherries and blueberries. All the fruit was washed, sliced, and neatly boxed. Add 1 yuan for unlimited yogurt. Add another yuan and get a free caddy of apples. The stand was clean and organized, standing out sharply amidst the chaotic vegetable market. That day's revenue broke 3,000. What satisfied me even more was that more people bought the premium fruit than the standard ones. While packing up, she couldn't help but ask me why. I looked at her and smiled. Because expensive things make them feel like they're getting a better deal. For just a 10 yuan difference, they get to pick premium goods however they want. Who wouldn't be tempted? Doing business is all about grasping human psychology, she muttered. You just have a smooth way with words. Her mouth complained, but the corners of her lips couldn't hide her smile. This week, we made another 10,000 yuan. The way she looked at me slowly began to regain its light. That day, when picking up Qianqian to go home, I saw a sharply dressed man in a suit standing at the door. It was Xu Meng's older brother, Xu Hai. Xu Meng happily ran over to him. Xu Hai shot me a glance. His gaze swept over me like a razor. Xiao Chen, come buy a pack of smokes with me. I knew he had something to say. Walking to the parking lot, he pointed at a BMW. This car is worth over 200,000. What do you think? It's all right. He pulled out a bank card and slapped it into my hand. There's 200,000 in here. It'll give you the car, too. Divorce Xiao Meng tomorrow. The kid stays with her. The car and the money are yours. From now on, we're even. Hearing Xu Hai's words, I shook my head. Brother-in-law, am not the same man I used to be. A leopard can't change its spots. Xu Hai's expression instantly turned ice cold. Xiao Meng is the precious jewel of our family. Look at the kind of life she has had to live since she got with you. Drinking, gambling. Do you even deserve her? If you think it's not enough money, name your price. Anger flared up inside me. I knew he was cursing the man I used to be, but those words still stung bitterly. Give me a few more months. You're not even worth an ant. He cut me off.
You country bumpkin?
Did you really think graduating college made you a city boy? If Xiao Meng hadn't been blind back then, what the hell would you even be? Don't people like you just want to climb the social ladder to cash in? Marrying a beautiful wife makes you feel like a big shot, doesn't it? Do you deserve her? I clenched my fists, then slowly let them go. My peasant background embarrasses your family. I looked him dead in the eye. Enunciating every word, I said, but don't try to throw money at me. You don't have enough. In 3 months, I can make 1,000,000 yuan. Come talk to me then. Xu Hai froze for a moment. Then, as if hearing the biggest joke in the world, he burst out laughing. I didn't bother paying him any more attention. I turned and headed back. When I got home, Xu Meng came out to greet me. Her eyes were full of worry. Are you okay? I'm fine. Your brother was just giving me some encouragement. I smiled and lied. She didn't believe me, but she didn't press the issue. Xu Hai stayed for dinner. At the dining table, his eyes swept over the old furniture in the house, and he frowned. You're still keeping this junk. Aren't you afraid people will laugh at you? Just as I was about to speak, Xu Meng gently tugged at my shirt under the table. She said softly to her brother, Brother, Zuisheng has really changed lately. Has helped me come up with a lot of ideas. And we've even made some money. Xu Hai scoffed coldly, not bothering to reply. Right at that moment, his phone rang. He picked it up. His expression instantly changed. What?
President Liu isn't satisfied with our marketing plan.
Didn't we agree to finalize the draft today? The voice on the other end sounded extremely frantic. Sitting nearby, I could vaguely hear. President Liu looked at the plan and said it was too outdated. Stuff like enjoying life and a masterpiece for the ages. He said clients nowadays don't care for this kind of stuff anymore. He wants to discuss it with you personally in the final 3 hours. If we can't fix it, the entire planning fee for this project will be cut. Even your job might be on the line. Shu Hai hurriedly pulled out his laptop and began humbly negotiating with the client. The other party demanded that it highlight a premium positioning. Without appearing arrogant, it needed cultural depth, yet also had to appeal to a younger demographic. I listened to a few sentences. Glancing at his proposal, I realized his entire mindset was completely wrong. High-end real estate isn't about selling houses. It's about selling social class and resources. It's about selling the future. I didn't say anything. I turned and went back to the kitchen. By the time I brought the food out again, Shu Hai had disappeared. His laptop was still open. The proposal was paused halfway through. My brother went outside to make a call. Shu Meng was sick with worry. If this gets messed up, he might even lose his job. I heard this real estate project is their company's most important project this year. Qianqian suddenly looked up with her little face. Daddy, are you smarter than Uncle? Unless you prove it to me. I smiled and sat down. Moving the mouse, I directly selected Shu Hei's unfinished proposal. I selected all and deleted everything. Are you crazy? Shu Meng gasped. He hasn't saved it yet. Saving it is useless anyway. His whole concept is wrong. I didn't explain further. My fingers flew across the keyboard. Very quickly, I was completely immersed in it. A brand new proposal gradually took shape under my hands. The operational logic of the upper class. Resource integration mindset. Step-by-step construction of an identity verification system. When Shu Hai returned and saw me sitting at his laptop, he instantly blew his top. Who told you to touch my computer? He just wanted to help. Shu Meng hurriedly explained. What the hell does he know about real estate marketing? Shu Hai lunged forward, ready to explode in a rage, but suddenly froze. On the screen was an incredibly polished marketing proposal. But the very next second, his eyes turned red. Where is my old proposal? Deleted. He trembled all over. Do you know how many all-nighters I pulled for that? But right at that moment, his phone rang. It was time to submit the draft. He stared at the nearly finished new proposal on the screen, his expression shifting rapidly. Finally, he gritted his teeth and hit send. Then he glared at me with burning eyes. If this gets screwed up, I won't let you off the hook. The results weren't out yet. I picked up my glass of water and took a sip. Less than 10 minutes later, his phone rang again. He answered and listened for a few moments. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly. After hanging up, he looked at me with a deeply complex expression. Then he grabbed his laptop and walked straight out. Heading to the company. I'll settle the score with you when I get back. I smiled faintly. I knew exactly what he was about to face. The contents of that proposal were absolutely not something someone of his caliber could clearly explain. Sure enough, not long after, my phone rang. It was Shu Hai on the other end. His voice sounded a bit flustered. Chen Zuisheng, can you come to my company right now? President Liu insists on meeting the planner in person. Send me the address. I'll drive over and pick you up. On the way to the company, Shu Hai drove very fast. The atmosphere in the car was incredibly heavy. He didn't say a word. And I didn't bother speaking either. While waiting at a red light, his face was tense. Finally, he blurted out. Later, when we meet President Liu, keep your mouth shut. Let me handle it. I shot him a glance. Keep making things up, and get exposed right on the spot. His face flushed bright red. He fell silent, then walked into the reception room. An elegantly dressed middle-aged man stood up. Pointing at the projector screen, he asked me, Mr. Chen, this concept of an upper-class convergence playground is excellent. How exactly do we implement it? I walked up to the projector. I told the assistant to flip to the operations page. I designed an identity verification system. First, property owners must pass a review by the management board. It's not just about having money. They must possess valuable resources for the elite community, such as a strong network, specialized skills, or social influence. Second, I propose reserving 30% of the housing stock as flexible living spaces to invite top-tier entrepreneurs, artists, and scholars for short-term residencies, allowing the community to generate its own prestige. Third, host monthly high society dialogues. As long as we invite outstanding figures in the industry, non-residents won't be able to buy a ticket in no matter how much money they have. President Li's eyes lit up, transforming a house from a mere commodity into a membership ticket. He asked about a few more details. I answered fluently. The veteran planners beside him nodded continuously in approval. President Liu stood up, looking at me with a burning gaze. The marketing director position is currently vacant. Annual salary, 500,000 yuan.
Will you take the job?
500,000 yuan. I felt Shu Hai's breath hitch for a second. I smiled and shook my head. I still have to help my wife run her fruit stand. I'm not considering getting a job right now. President Liu was stunned for a moment. I continued, but there's something I'm not sure if I should say.
Please do.
Your pricing for this real estate project is far too conservative. The atmosphere instantly froze. Shuhai hurriedly tugged at my sleeve. President Liu narrowed his eyes. Mr. Chen, what do you mean? Given the current market situation, our pricing is already the highest in this area, if I'm not mistaken. The opening price you've prepared is 85,000 yuan per square meter, right? I paused for a moment. I suggest raising it to over 120,000 yuan. Gasps of shock echoed throughout the meeting room. Some people had already started shaking their heads. President Liu said, Mr. Chen, perhaps you don't fully understand the market. In this area, anything over 90,000 yuan is already a tough sell. Here is the situation. I walked over to the window and pointed at the empty plot of land to the east of the project. First, the minutes from last week's Development and Reform Commission meeting mentioned strengthening the railway transit network in the Eastern New District. Second, the new mayor, in his speech at the Construction Systems Symposium last month, emphasized shortening the commute time between the new development zone and the inner city. Third, the Planning Bureau's website recently updated the land use map for the eastern sector. The plot of land east of your project has been reclassified from reserve land to transportation infrastructure land. The meeting room suddenly fell dead silent. Everyone's eyes were fixed on me. String these pieces of information together, add in the new mayor's resume. When he was in office in the Southern New District, the first major thing he did was push for the construction of a subway extension line. I predict that within the next 6 months, the subway extension plan will be announced. There is a high probability the station will be located right east of your project. President Liu suddenly shot up from his seat. How certain are you? 70%, I said calmly, but even if it were only 50%, it's worth the gamble. Because once the news is announced, housing prices will instantly spike by over 30%. If you raise the price to 120,000 now, it might look expensive, but compared to its actual value 6 months from now, it's still a bargain. I looked toward President Liu. More importantly, once the subway news is announced, surrounding mass market housing projects will flood the market. If you stick to the 85,000 yuan price tag, you'll completely lose the positioning advantage of an upper-class convergence playground. The rich won't want to be neighbors with office workers squeezing onto the subway. The reception room was completely silent. President Liu stared at me for a full minute. Then he made a phone call.
Secretary Wang.
Contact Director Li at the planning department. Discreetly look into the subway plans for the Eastern New District. 10 minutes of waiting. Felt as long as 10 years. The phone rang. President Liu picked it up. The more he listened, the more serious his expression became. Finally, he just said one sentence. It's confirmed then. All right, I understand. He hung up and looked at me. Come work at my company as the vice president of marketing. Annual salary? 1 million yuan.
Will you take it?
An annual salary of 1 million yuan. I saw Shu Hai's face flush bright red. He stood there, completely dumbfounded. I still shook my head. I have no interest in working for someone else. I want to spend more time with my family. President Liu looked at me for a long time, then smiled bitterly. To each their own ambition, but I still want to hire you for this project. You name your price. I looked over at Shu Hai. Actually, Specialist Shu has a very solid foundation, has already fully grasped the core concept of this proposal. President Liu, you can just work directly with him. Shu Hai froze. He looked at me, his eyes full of disbelief. President Liu thought for a moment, then finally nodded. All right, then I'll be counting on both of you for this project. Stepping out of the company, Shu Hai still looked like he was in a dream. He suddenly asked 1 million yuan a year, and you really don't want it. Did you really analyze that subway news all by yourself? The information was right there in plain sight. I said, the fruit stand at home can't run without me. He was silent for a few seconds. His voice trembled slightly. Do you even know what 1 million yuan means? I've worked my ass off for 8 years just to make half of that. Brother, once this deal goes through, you'll be the company's top contributor. I patted his shoulder. Your path forward will be much wider. I got in the car and left. Through the rearview mirror, I saw him still rooted to the spot. He watched my retreating figure for a long time without moving. At dinner time, Shu Hai came over again. I took the initiative to raise my glass. Substituting tea for wine, I said, brother-in-law, for all the bastardly things I've done in the past, I sincerely apologize. Shu Meng was stunned. Her chopsticks paused mid-air. I knew what she was thinking. The old Chen Zuisheng only knew how to cause trouble. When had he ever apologized to anyone? Shu Hai looked away, a bit unnerved. Shu Meng looked at him, then back at me. Suddenly, she spoke up. Brother, did you say something to him again? I smiled. Your brother was just reminding me to be more ambitious. Shu Meng put her chopsticks down. She looked at Shu Hai seriously. Brother, I chose him. I chose this path. No matter how bitter the fruit, I'll bear it myself. If you all really want what's best for me, then stop saying things that put me in a difficult position. Under the light, her eyes held a stubbornness that refused to turn back. Shu Hai raised his glass and downed it in one gulp. He sighed and didn't say anything else. He ate hurriedly and left. After seeing him off, I turned around. Shu Meng was looking at me. You're acting really strange today? Strange how? I can't really explain it. She tilted her head. It just feels like a long nightmare has finally come to an end. It was late. As usual, I laid out my bedding on the living room sofa. Shu Meng came out of the bedroom holding a blanket. She stopped at the door. She turned her head to look at me. Are you addicted to sleeping on the sofa? She smiled, pursing her lips. Then she turned and went back into the room. The door wasn't closed. Early the next morning, Shu Meng took Qian Qian to check out a new kindergarten. I stayed home to check the accounts, planning my next move. Near noon, my phone suddenly rang. As soon as I picked up, I heard Shu Meng's sobbing voice. There was a chaotic noise in the background. Zuisheng hurried to the city people's hospital.
Qian Qian.
Qian Qian suddenly couldn't breathe. Shez in the emergency room right now. My mind went completely blank. I dropped everything and rushed out the door. At the hospital, the Shu family was already there. As soon as my father-in-law, Xu Zhengqi, saw me, he stormed over in a rage. Chen Zuisheng, look at this.
Look at how much you've ruined her.
The doctor said this illness should have been caught early. A nurse hurriedly stopped the family. Please keep your voices down. My mother-in-law, Gu Manru, walked over with red eyes. Her voice trembled. The doctor said it's idiopathic pulmonary arterial hypertension, a rare disease. The medication they're using now is just to temporarily stabilize her. She needs a specific targeted drug. The imported one costs over 100,000 a month, and she has to take it long term. My heart felt like it was being crushed. Pulmonary arterial hypertension. How is that possible? Shu Meng threw herself into my arms, crying so hard her whole body shook. The doctor said Shez probably had it for a long time. The symptoms weren't obvious. It's all my fault for not noticing. Sometimes she said she was tired, but I just thought she was worn out from playing. What's the point of saying all this now? Xu Zhengqi's voice was harsh. Treating the illness requires money. The targeted drug costs over 100,000 a month. Can you even afford that? Gu Manru looked at her daughter. Xiao Meng, listen to me.
Get a divorce.
Once you divorce, the Xu family will cover Qianqian's medical bills. Xu Meng suddenly looked up.
Mom.
What are you saying? Do you still want to follow him and suffer? Just look at the child. Gu Manru burst into tears too. We can't stop this medication. If we stop, her condition will deteriorate rapidly. Shu Meng stared blankly at the tightly closed emergency room doors. Her tears kept falling, but she wiped her face fiercely and stood up straight. Mom, I've already told you. I chose him. I chose this path. No matter how hard or difficult it gets, well, bear it ourselves. Can you bear it? Xu Zhengqi yelled angrily. Over 30,000 yuan a month. And who knows how long she'll have to take this drug. I pulled Shu Meng behind me to protect her and looked straight at Xu Zhengqi. Well, figure out the money ourselves. You don't need to worry about it, Dad. Figure it out. What can you possibly figure out? Xu Hai couldn't help but speak up. You turned down a job with 1 million yuan annual salary from Director Liu. I have my own ways now. I cut him off. Qian Qian is our daughter. We will take full responsibility for her. Xu Zhengqi stared at me for a long time, then suddenly let out a cold laugh. Fine. You've got some nerve. Then you two can bear it yourselves. Let's go. The Xu family all left. Shu Meng leaned on my shoulder, sobbing. Her shoulders trembled uncontrollably. Don't be afraid. I patted her back gently. I'm here. But what about the medical bills? She looked up with tear-filled eyes. It's 30,000 yuan a month. Money won't be an issue. I looked out the window. You just take good care of Qian Qian. Leave everything else to me. At the billing counter, I looked at the bank card in my hand. It held the money we had saved by working day and night, scrapping together every single penny. But I knew that to cure my daughter, this amount was nowhere near enough. In my past life, I built a trillion-dollar empire from nothing. In this life, for this family, I have to make enough money right now. In the hospital corridor, I frantically searched my memories for any way to make quick cash. Derivatives are too slow. Antiques are too risky. Jade gambling requires connections. Just then, a highly classified memory suddenly became clear. The virtual horse racing section of an underground casino. There was a loophole with advanced payouts. Someone had exploited it to walk away with over 2 million yuan in just 3 days. The site only noticed the anomaly when they audited their books. The mechanics of this loophole weren't complicated, but it required extremely precise timing to encourage players to bet when a virtual match reached its final 30 seconds. The system would use real-time odds to advance the potential winnings, displaying them as the user's available balance. The catch was, during these final 30 seconds, if a user used this virtual balance to bet on other matches that were about to end, the system would actually confirm the bet. As long as it was done right, you could use a small amount of real capital to leverage dozens of times the virtual capital and place chain bets. Once all the matches were settled, as long as the final bet won, the profit would be real money. Simply put, it's like betting 100 yuan at a casino before the results are out. If you're about to win, they front you 1,000 yuan in chips and say this could be yours. You immediately turn around and use that 1,000 yuan in chips to bet at another table and win. In the end, The casino has no choice but to pay up, and I knew the exact operational time frame of this loophole, its trigger conditions, and how to bypass the risk control system. Most importantly, at this point in time, no one knew about this loophole yet. I glanced at the clock in the hospital corridor. 20 p.m. I turned and quickly walked out of the inpatient ward. Near the hospital was a rundown internet cafe, thick with cigarette smoke. I got a computer in the most secluded corner and logged into a site that looked like a normal sports news page. But I knew the secret entrance. After 3-page redirects, I finally reached a basic interface, a site with only text and simple animations. Lucky Horse Racing. Virtual horse racing, 3 minutes per race. I took a deep breath. Step 1, register a new account, using a randomly generated username. Step 2, deposit funds. This site supported a few discrete third-party payment channels. I chose to deposit in scattered, small amounts. 5 minutes later, 5,000 yuan of capital was in the account. Account balance, 5,000. At 2:40 p.m., the first virtual horse race began. I bet 1,000 yuan on horse number 3 at 2.5 odds. The simulated race reached its final 40 seconds. Horse, no. 3 moved up from 5th to 2nd place. At this moment, in the bottom right corner of the system interface, my available balance suddenly jumped. From 4,000, it became 5,500. The system had taken the 1,000 yuan bet and added the 1,500 yuan in potential winnings in advance. But I didn't make a move yet. This was just a normal display. It wasn't the loophole yet. The race ended. Horse, no. 3 won by a narrow margin. Actual settlement, 1,500 profit. Account balance, 6,500. The second race was at 2:45 p.m. I bet 2,000 yuan on a consecutive win, predicting the top 2 horses, odds 3.2. In the final 30 seconds, the system displayed the advanced profit again. My balance jumped from 4,500 to 11,400. 4,500 plus 2,000 times 3.2. Here comes the crucial part. When the race had only 25 seconds left, I quickly switched to another virtual soccer match that was about to end. In a minor prop bet, I used the entire 11,400 balance to place a wager. In the last 5 minutes, the odds for a goal being scored were 1.8. The system confirmed it successfully. Bet placed successfully. The loophole really existed. It treated the projected profit as actual usable capital. My heart started beating faster. The horse race ended. Consecutive win, profit earned 4,400. In the 89th minute of the soccer match, the virtual player fired a long shot into the net. Profit, 20,520. The account balance changed instantly. Adding 4,400 and 20,520, the total was 26,920 in less than 10 minutes. 5,000 had turned into 21,000, but I didn't stop. I knew this loophole could be exploited continuously. As long as I timed the final 30 seconds of each match perfectly, the multiplier effect would snowball, making the virtual capital grow exponentially.
Even if I lost.
I'd only be losing that virtual capital. Round 3. Round 4. Round 3. Round 4. My hands moved swiftly over the keyboard and mouse. My eyes were glued to 3 windows at once, each counting down different matches. Every move had to be precise down to the second. At 3:21 p.m., I completed the final round of operations. The final account balance on the screen was 126,800. I had used 5,000 yuan to make over 140 times the profit in just an hour. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the numbers on the screen. My palms sweaty. I clicked the withdraw button. The site notified me that large withdrawals required manual review, and the funds would hit my account within 2 hours. I cleared all my browsing history, shut down the computer, and got up to leave. When I stepped out of the internet cafe, the sunlight was a bit blinding. I raised my hand to shield my eyes and took a deep breath. 120,000 yuan was still far too little for Chiankin's condition. To cure her completely, I needed a lot more money. But I knew that very soon, someone would come and hand me the money. Pushing open the hospital room door, I heard the nurse's cold voice.
M's. XU.
There's only a 5,000 yuan deposit in the system. You must pay the full amount today. Otherwise, we can't continue with the tests and medication. Xu Meng was so frantic she was crying. That's impossible. My husband just went to pay 10,000 yuan an hour ago. She saw me walk in, and her voice suddenly caught in her throat. Where's the money? Where's the 10,000 yuan? You only paid 5,000. I looked into her eyes. I took the other 5,000 to bet on horse racing. Horse racing? Xu Meng's expression instantly shattered. She stumbled a bit. If all her strength had been drained, Chen Zuisheng, that was Qianqian's life-saving money, and you took it to gamble. She lunged at me, pounding her fists against my chest, crying her heart out. Are you even human? What happened to your promises? The nurse standing nearby shook her head and sighed, her eyes full of contempt. I grabbed her wrists and lowered my voice. Meng, listen to me. I won with that 5,000. The money will hit the account within 2 hours of withdrawal. Qianqian's medical bills are temporarily sorted. She stopped and looked up, looking at me with absolute despair. You're starting again. You're starting to lie again, aren't you? The finger she pointed at me trembled violently. You know full well what I hate most about you is? What happened to your promises? I stayed silent. Anything I said right now would just sound like an excuse? Give me 2 hours. I let go of her and looked at our pale daughter on the hospital bed. In 2 hours, I'll bring the money back. With that, I turned and left. Behind me was her suppressed, desperate crying. When I came back with hot porridge, Xu Meng was slumped by the bed, seemingly asleep, but her trembling shoulders gave her away. Qianqian was awake. Her tiny body was covered in IV tubes. Seeing me, she managed a weak smile. Daddy Qianqian is being very good. I leaned down and gently touched her little face. Daddy will definitely beat this illness. I'll take you to the most fun amusement park, and we'll eat cotton candy bigger than the clouds. Qianqian's eyes lit up. She whispered, I want to be with Daddy and Mommy forever. Xu Meng looked up. Her eyes were red. She looked at our daughter's pleading eyes, then back at me. Finally, she just let out an exhausted sigh. Taking the bowl of porridge, she said, Go take care of your business first. Her voice was hoarse. I'm here. I knew this was the last bit of a chance she was giving me. I glanced at my watch. When I walked out of the hospital room, I didn't look back. I left the hospital. Preparing to head to the bank, a black Mercedes suddenly blocked my path. The car door opened. 2 men in black suits with expressionless faces stepped out. Mr. Chen, Boss Gu invites you into the car for a chat. That was fast. I nodded and got in. The interior was incredibly spacious. A man in his 40s, wearing an exquisitely tailored suit, sat across from me. His features weren't fierce at all. In fact, he looked somewhat refined. Guidong. I had dealt with him quite a bit in my past life, and even collaborated with him. Chen Zuisheng. He looked up at me.
You've got some skills?
That crappy system of mine. I hired 7 or 8 programmers to watch over it, and there hasn't been a single glitch in 3 years. You just made your move and tore a massive hole in it. Tell me, how did you find it? I leaned back in my seat, meeting his gaze. Boss Gu, you run a casino, but you're afraid of people winning money. The system having a loophole is your problem. I won that money with my own skills.
What are you trying to back out of paying?
Weidong narrowed his eyes. It's just over 100 grand. I, Gu Weidong, am not that sore of a loser. He smiled. You can take the money, but you can't just walk away without paying a price. I knew he was probing into my background. I knew him very well in my past life, but I couldn't show all my cards just yet. I smiled. Fair enough. I won't take your money for nothing. How about I give you a piece of information? Weidong raised an eyebrow. Let's hear it. It's about your old man, mister? Gu Changgang. The jade ring on Gu Weidong's finger stopped moving. Has he been experiencing occasional chest tightness lately, along with numbness in his left shoulder and arm? My voice was calm. I advise him to go get a coronary CT scan immediately. Focus on checking the midsection of the left anterior descending artery. Routine checkups won't detect non-calcified plaques. Weidong's pupils contracted slightly. He stared at me for a few seconds, then immediately made a call. Director Wang, please arrange an emergency heart exam for my old man. A coronary CT scan focusing on the left anterior descending artery.
Yes.
The car fell into silence. 40 minutes later, his phone rang. Guidong picked it up, and his expression drastically changed. After hanging up, the way he looked at me had completely changed. The left anterior descending artery is severely narrowed. Over 85%. Any later, and we wouldn't have been able to save him. Chen Zuisheng, who exactly are you? That doesn't matter. I met his gaze. My money will be unfrozen and my safety guaranteed. On my turf, Weidong stared at me intently. No one can touch you, but someone like you wouldn't take this risk just for 70 million. You still have something else to say, don't you? Sharp as expected. There is indeed one more piece of information. I looked him in the eye. About a woman you've been searching for over a decade without success. And a child whose existence you probably don't even know about. Weidong suddenly sat up straight. His refined demeanor completely vanished. His eyes filled with shock. What did you say? She married a high school teacher in Suzhou. She lives a very quiet life. I lowered my voice. She has a daughter. Her 7th birthday is on June 17th. Weidong's face turned pale. His fingers trembled slightly.
That date. That age? Speak.
What do you want? His voice was raspy and thick. 500 million yuan, and this information is yours. A Chiang. Transfer the funds immediately. Guidong turned and gave the order. 10 minutes later, my phone vibrated. A notification confirmed the money had hit my bank account. I sent him the detailed information I had already prepared on my phone. The deal was done. I opened the car door. My daughter is in the hospital. She needs absolute peace and quiet. Don't let any trouble find its way to her door. Guidong gave a decisive nod. I'll arrange the best resources at the hospital. The car door slammed shut. The Mercedes drove away. I stood at the hospital entrance. I now had 572 million yuan in my card. Qianqian's medical fees were finally covered. I gripped my phone tightly. I hurried into the hospital building. I rushed toward the ward as fast as I could. I pushed the door open, but Xu Meng wasn't there. My father-in-law, Xu Zhengqi, was sitting by the bed. His face was grim and ashen. Your daughter is this sick. Yet as a father, you're out running around everywhere. I didn't even bother to acknowledge him. I walked to the bedside and touched Qianqian's forehead. I asked softly, "Where's Mommy, sweetie?" Mommy said she had something to take care of. She told Grandpa to watch me. Xu Zhengqi let out a cold snort. The two of you are exactly the same, always running off. She hasn't shown her face for hours. My heart tightened. Xu Meng would never abandon Qianqian at a time like this. It's been hours. I immediately called her. No one picked up. No answer. Xu Zhengqi also realized something was wrong. Why isn't Meng Meng answering her phone? Just then, the sound of a cleaning lady cursing drifted in from the hallway. These heartless people, plastering surrogacy ads all over the restroom again. How can they live with themselves making money like that?
Surrogacy.
A terrifying thought immediately flashed through my mind. Xu Meng wouldn't. No way. She wouldn't be that foolish. But in the next second, I remembered her stubborn face and those bloodshot eyes. She really would do it. I turned and bolted out of the ward.
Where are you going? The hospital is hounding us for the fees.
Xu Zhengqi shouted after me. I've already paid the fees. Just watch over Qianqian, Dad. I sprinted toward the women's restroom, ignoring the screams from inside. I kicked open every single stall door. In the third stall, a phone number was plastered on the wall. Guaranteed sons and high pay for surrogates. 300,000 yuan advance payment. I dialed the number immediately. Looking for a surrogate. I lowered my voice. I spoke with a cold, decisive tone. I need a child urgently. Money is no object. The woman on the other end sounded wary. Sir, I think you have the wrong number. Stop playing games. I let out a cold laugh. My wife can't conceive.
I want a son.
And I want to be able to choose the gender. There was a few seconds of silence. The other person's tone suddenly became enthusiastic. Boss, you're certainly well informed. We can make that happen. But regarding the price, money isn't an issue. I cut her off. But I want to handpick the person. I don't want anyone who's done this before.
I want someone completely new.
Preferably someone who hasn't given birth before. Young, healthy, with good genes. We don't have any new recruits available right now. The woman sounded hesitant. Are you sure about that? I raised my voice. She was clearly taken aback. How did you know I have other channels? I said coldly. Send me the address. I'm coming over to see for myself right now. If I'm satisfied, I'll pay double. Double. Her voice trembled. Boss, are you serious? I'm in a hurry. I glanced at my watch. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Keep the new one for me. If Shez already signed a contract and started the process, then the deal is off. She hasn't signed yet. She just finished the preliminary checkup. Just come over, boss. We'll be waiting for you. I hung up and rushed out of the hospital. I hailed a taxi. Driver, get me to this location, fast. At the same time, I called the police. I whispered the address to them. I reported a suspicion of an illegal surrogacy ring. 20 minutes later, I stood in a dilapidated urban village. I found an old building with a sign for domestic help services. I went straight up to the third floor. The door was slightly ajar. A middle-aged woman with heavy makeup was eyeing me. Are you the boss who called? Where is she? I walked straight inside. In the lounge area, the woman followed me with a fawning smile. This one has great potential. 28 years old, already had one daughter. Natural birth, excellent health. She needs money urgently, so the price is negotiable. I pushed the door open. Xu Meng was sitting on a tattered sofa. Her hands were gripping the hem of her shirt tightly. When she saw me walk in, her eyes suddenly widened. She was completely stunned. Shall do. I observed her indifferently, as if I were inspecting a piece of merchandise. Stand up and turn around for me. As she stood up, a look of pure terror washed over her face. What do you think, boss? The woman said flatteringly. Her looks and figure are top-notch. She even has a bachelor's degree. I walked right up to Xu Meng. I stared into her face. She's so thin. Can she even produce a son? We can't guarantee a boy or a girl 100%. But we can perform screenings. The woman explained hurriedly. I want to be certain it's a boy, I said coldly. I'm willing to pay extra. But if it turns out to be a girl, you will be held fully responsible. Boss, that's a huge risk. High risk means high profit. I turned and glared at the woman. I'm taking this one. Name your price. Let's sign the contract now. I'm taking her with me right now. The woman was taken aback. Boss, I need to expedite this process. I pulled a bank card from my pocket. Money is no object. But I'm taking her with me immediately. The middle-aged woman's eyes darted around. Boss, this isn't how we usually do things. If you take her and something happens, then call someone who actually has the authority to make decisions. I stared her down. Or do you simply not have the power to decide? The woman's expression shifted. Boss, please wait a moment. She stepped out of the room. She closed the door. The moment it shut, Xu Meng rushed over and grabbed my arm. Are you crazy? Get out of here. Now, we're leaving together? I gripped her hand. Trust me. Footsteps echoed outside. The door was kicked open. The middle-aged woman returned. Behind her were two burly men, and a middle-aged man in a suit. He wore gold-rimmed glasses. Boss, this is our manager Chen. Manager Chen sized me up. I heard you're in a hurry to take her away. Then let's talk price. 800,000 yuan for the full package. Guaranteed to be a boy. You can pay a 500,000 yuan deposit first. I'll transfer it right now, but I'm taking her with me. The rest will be paid once the pregnancy is confirmed. Manager Chen chuckled. Boss, that's not how the rules work. You pay the full amount now? As for the girl, we will deliver her to your specified location. He adjusted his glasses. His smile was laced with hidden meaning. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't be leaving this room. I narrowed my eyes. My money isn't that easy to swallow. Then let's see if you have what it takes to walk out that door. Manager Chen gave a subtle nod. The two thugs took a step forward. Right then, the faint sound of police sirens drifted from below. Manager Chen's face changed instantly.
You called the cops?
Why would I do that? I let out a cold laugh. But it seems your business isn't exactly clean. The sirens grew louder, closing in fast. Chaos erupted downstairs. Manager Chen roared, "Waste him. Get out through the back." The two thugs lunged at me from both sides. I shoved Xu Meng into the corner with all my strength. I grabbed a chair and swung it with everything I had. The guy on the left grunted. The wooden chair shattered against his shoulder. He let out a pained groan. His movements faltered for a second. But the thug on the right had already thrown a punch that whistled through the air, aiming straight for my temple. I jerked my head to the side. The fist grazed my cheek. It burned like fire. Before I could even steady myself, a flash of cold steel caught my eye. He had pulled out a switchblade. He lunged straight for Xu Meng. Xu Meng's piercing scream filled the room. In a heartbeat, I threw myself forward. I shielded Xu Meng with my body. The sound of the sharp blade sinking into flesh was sickening. A surge of agonizing pain exploded. My left shoulder went cold. Then it turned into a searing white-hot burn. The thug hadn't expected me to jump in front of the blade. He froze for a split second. That was my chance. My right hand clamped onto his wrist, and I slammed my forehead into the bridge of his nose. A sickening crunch followed by a pathetic howl. He dropped the knife. Police.
Don't move.
Everyone on the ground. In that single moment, the police stormed the floor. I clutched my left shoulder as blood soaked through my shirt. I stayed positioned in front of Xu Meng. I raised my right hand. Officer, were the victims here? Manager Chen was pinned to the floor, still trying to struggle. But the officers held him down firmly. A young officer saw me covered in blood. He immediately barked into his radio. "We have a casualty here. Send an ambulance immediately." Xu Meng rushed to my side. Her trembling hands pressed against my wound. Tears streamed down her face. Her voice broke as she sobbed. You're bleeding. There is so much blood." I leaned against the wall. I forced a small smile for her. I used my good hand to gently touch her face. "It's okay. It's just a scratch. As long as you're safe, that's all that matters." By the time we walked out of the police station, the sky was pitch black. Xu Meng gripped my arm tightly. Her fingertips were ice cold. She was still shaking. Once we reached a quiet spot, she stopped walking. She looked up at me. Her face was stained with tears. "How did you know I was there? How could you be so reckless to go in alone?" I reached out and gently wiped away her tears. "Because you're my wife, and Qianqian is our daughter. Even if the sky falls, I'm here to hold it up. Don't worry. I've already paid Qianqian's medical bills." Xu Meng collapsed into my arms and sobbed uncontrollably, as if she were finally letting out all the fear and resentment. I held her trembling body close, letting her tears soak into my shirt. The night sky was indifferent, but the darkest moment had finally passed. Back at the hospital, a nurse tended to my wound. The stab wound on my left shoulder required over 10 stitches. The doctor said if it had been any deeper, it would have hit a nerve. Once I was bandaged up, I told Xu Meng to go check on our daughter first. She hesitated for a moment, but having been away from the child for so long, she couldn't rest. Finally, she nodded and went. She was still uneasy, but she eventually went. I sat on the bench in the treatment room and let out a long sigh. Just as I was about to stand up, my phone chimed with a notification. Weidong's side had transferred another sum of money. They said it was a medical support fund for Qianqian. I glanced at the amount. This would be more than enough. When I pushed open the door to the ward, Xu Hai was standing at the end of the hallway on a call. When he saw me, his face darkened instantly. He hung up and marched toward me. "Chen Zuisheng." He lowered his voice. "Where did that 500,000 yuan deposit for the medicine come from?" "I won it on digital horse racing," I answered simply. He stared at me for a few seconds. Then he let out a cold, mocking laugh. "Chen Zuisheng, you've been gambling for years? You've never brought home a single cent. And now that your daughter is sick, you suddenly win a fortune." I didn't respond. "I bet you crawled to Liu Xingrong and begged for it. You acted so noble before, refusing to take it. Now you're back on your knees, groveling for a loan. Let me tell you something. Don't you dare let that 1 million yuan debt drag the Shu family down. With that, he turned and walked away. I stood there, watching him leave. Over the next month, Qianqian remained hospitalized. Idiopathic pulmonary arterial hypertension is extremely rare. In this country, we could only rely on imported targeted drugs. Despite our efforts, her condition continued to deteriorate bit by bit. Xu Meng and I took turns watching over her. She took the day shift, and I took the night. When I was tired, I did catch a few minutes of sleep on the hallway chairs. When I was hungry, I did eat the cheapest boxed meals from the cafeteria. The rest of the Xu family never showed their faces. I knew Xu Meng was hurting inside, but she never said a word. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and see her slumped by the bed, staring blankly while holding Qianqian's tiny hand. A month later, the Xu family finally showed up. The doctor was finishing an examination on Qianqian. After he was done, the doctor spoke to us. The current medication can only delay the progression of the disease. It cannot reverse it. If this continues, the strain on the child's heart and lungs will only get heavier. The first thing Xu Zhengqi asked about was the money. That 500,000 yuan must be almost gone by now, right? Xu Hai added coldly. Have you figured out how you're going to pay it back? That money wasn't a loan, Xu Ming said. It wasn't a loan, Guiyu Manru interrupted. What? Did it just fall from the sky then? Xu Zhengqi stood before everyone, pointing a finger at my face as he yelled, Chen Zuisheng, you liar. You've ruined my daughter and my granddaughter. I suppressed my anger. Dad, keep your voice down. Don't upset the child. You think you're worthy of calling me Dad? Just then, the ward door was pushed open. The doctor entered, followed by several specialists. I have some news. The doctor looked toward us. A team of specialists from a top international heart and lung center is about to launch an advanced intervention program here. It combines gene-targeted therapy with the reconstruction of pulmonary microcirculation. Combined with precise targeted regulation, there is a chance to completely reverse the condition. He paused for a moment. Qianqian's vitals happened to meet all the criteria. Xu Meng suddenly gripped my hand. Her eyes were red. But we must start the treatment process immediately. The initial cost is 1 million yuan. I turned and walked out of the ward. At the end of the hallway, I called Gu Weidong. Don't worry about the money anymore. He told me that Professor Robert was someone he personally invited from Zurich. Hez reviewed your daughter's case and said it's better than expected. The surgical outcome should be ideal. Thank you. I'm the one who should be thanking you. He paused for a moment. My wife and daughter have found a protector in you, Mr. Chen. I will remember this favor. I hung up the phone. I headed back to the payment counter. By the time I returned to the ward door, I could hear Xu Zhengqi's voice from inside. See, the moment money is mentioned, he disappears. Meng, as long as you get a divorce, the Xu family will take care of this. Xu Meng's voice was very soft, but incredibly firm. Mom, Dad, I appreciate the offer, but it's really not necessary. Zuisheng already paid another 1 million yuan deposit the day before yesterday. The room fell silent for several seconds. A nurse pushed the door open to prepare for surgery. She mentioned casually, the child's father just paid another 1 million. It's for post-operative care and imported targeted medications. I stood at the door. I looked at Xu Zhengqi, Guiyu Manru, and Xu Hai. All three of them were frozen in shock. The red light outside the operating room was on. Xu Meng leaned against my shoulder. Her body was trembling slightly. I took her hand. Professor Robert is a world-renowned expert in pulmonary hypertension. Has performed 27 of these surgeries. Every single one was a success. Everything will be fine. Xu Hai walked over with a dark expression. Chen Zuisheng, just how much money did you borrow from President Liu? I looked up at him.
My business is none of your concern.
2 million yuan. Even if the Xu family sold our house, we couldn't cover that. He turned to Xu Meng. Sis, tell me the truth. Xu Meng was just about to speak. Zhengqi strode over and pointed right at my nose. Why are you asking him? He's only good at lying and gambling. He turned to Xu Meng. Meng, Dad currently has 1 million yuan in savings. As long as you agree to a divorce, I'll transfer this money to you immediately. But tomorrow morning, I was planning to invest this money into the pension mortgage project led by Director Zhou. Guiyu Manru stood nearby and explained, the annual return is at least 30%. This is an internal opportunity within the retired officials' circle. It's a 10-year contract. After 10 years, not only will the company return the house exactly as it is, but there will also be additional returns on the capital. Director Zhou already said it. This is a national pilot project. There are only a few spots available. Your mom and I figured we'd let the money make money. In the end, it'll all be left to you kids anyway. I looked at Xu Zhengqi. Dad, the model you just mentioned, is mortgaging real estate to a third-party company in exchange for pension funds, right? Xu Zhengqi froze for a moment. His face clearly showed disdain. My old superior personally vouched for it. It's a legitimate company contract, and I've already had a lawyer look it over. What do you know? This is a new scam that's popped up in the last 2 years. These so-called professional companies are usually just shell corporations. Their registered capital is only a few tens of thousands of yuan. Sure, they'll pay the pension on time for the first few months. But by the time people realize what's happening, both their houses and their money will be completely gone. Director Joe is either being scammed himself, or, well, I haven't even finished.
Bullshit.
Xu Zhengqi flew into a rage. Our lifelong connections and networks. Is it your place, you drunkard, to point fingers at them? The contract is in black and white. You think the government wouldn't regulate it? I think you're just jealous.
Dad.
Xu Meng suddenly stood up. Her voice trembled. Take your project and go. I don't need your money anymore. Whether Qianqian lives or dies, I'll bear it alone. Xu Zhengqi's face turned pale. He pointed at his daughter, speechless for a long time. Finally, he flung his hand down.
Fine.
Don't you dare regret this? Gay Manra's eyes were red as she sighed. Shu Hai wanted to say something but stopped. The whole family turned and left. The area outside the operating room suddenly fell dead silent. Xu Meng slumped down onto the bench. Tears fell silently from her eyes. I gently wrapped my arm around her shoulders. 4 hours later, the operating room light turned off. The attending physician walked out. A smile bloomed on his face. The surgery was a great success. She needs to be monitored in the ICU for 48 hours. But the post-operative prognosis is very optimistic. Xu Meng's legs gave out. I caught her just in time. She covered her face. Tears streamed through her fingers, but this time they were tears of joy. 2 months later, Qian was cleared for discharge. Her complexion was much rosier, although she still needed medication and regular checkups. She could already run and jump around. To celebrate her new lease on life, we made a reservation at a newly opened high-end steakhouse. When she was in the hospital, I promised her that once she got better, I'd take her to eat the best steak ever. The atmosphere in the steakhouse was very elegant. Qian excitedly swung her little legs in her chair. Xu Meng helped her spread her napkin. All the dishes had been served. I was just about to cut the steak when a sharply dressed young man walked past our aisle. He casually glanced over, and his eyes stopped on Xu Meng. He suddenly froze. Looking at Xu Meng, a look of surprise crossed his face. Soon after, it morphed into a meaningful smirk. He took a few steps closer. His gaze swept over me and Qian, lingering on Qian for a moment longer. Finally, his eyes returned to Xu Meng's face. I heard you got married, and this is... Xu Meng's fingers tightened slightly. This man was Zhou Feng, the blind date Xu Meng's parents had tried so hard to set her up with back in the day. Seeing him, Xu Meng's body visibly stiffened. Zhou Feng. Xu Meng's voice was a bit unnatural. What a coincidence. Zhou Feng turned to me.